Flopsy and the Easter Bunny Olympics, part 29 of 40. 16 bunnies queued between Bustle and me for our 300-meter steeplechase. These 16 prevented us from speaking with one another as we waited in the time trial line. As the air horn blasted its go signal, I feared I would spend the 5 minutes and 25 seconds till my go time wasting energy by waiting anxiously. As the race started, I wished Bustle was by my side to both comfort and be comforted, and as the race's stopwatch hit the 2-minute mark, I was disappointed in myself. My disappointment went paw in paw with the malicious smile that crossed my face. 2 minutes into the race meant Woundwort was beginning his 300-meter race from his ignoble forward position. Even as mean thoughts of Woundwort crossed my mind, I immediately sent a quick prayer asking for forgiveness and guidance heavenward. Though I hadn't expressed my cruel thoughts aloud, they were cruel, and though it would be an exaggeration to say that I felt guilty for denigrating him, it is true that I knew I shouldn't have, even though my cruel thoughts had not been spoken. As the race clock displayed 7:50, I whispered, "Go, Bustle, go!" and wondered how long I'd been shaking. At 9:27, I hollered to Pax, "Go get him, Pax! I'll be gunning for you!" and realized that my shaking had become more pronounced. As the 64th bunny began racing, I progressed to the start line, and as I stepped forward, I heard Springer say, "Let's go, Flopsy! Let's have a great race!" Springer's encouragement brought a smile to my face, but when the two bunnies behind him repeated that sentiment, I almost started to cry from their kindness. Even as their words touched my soul, I knew the best way for me to repay them would be to race my hardest, and I was off. I was off and running with no shakes, no fears, and no feelings of dejection. I would do my best. I would do my best because that's what the Easter Bunny Games deserved, and I would do my best to prove to myself and everybody in the Wells Fargo that I, along with every other bunny competing, had just as much right to be there as the contemptuous, self-righteous rabbits who insisted that only brown bunnies were pure bunnies and wanted mine and my kind out. I was unsurprised to find the first over blue obstacle encountered was more daunting for our 300-meter steeplechase than it had been for the 400, but likewise not nearly as hard as the one we'd encountered in the 100-meter. Leaping, then scrambling up, my soul ascended with my body, and though the racing and jumping completed earlier that morning was taking a toll on me physically, my mind, like my spirit, was back in the race, and I reminded myself that this was intended to be fun, to be uplifting, and as I scrambled to the top, then hurried down the far side, it was both of these things. As I continued my race around the track, I again found cues to be either short or non-existent. Flying down the first straightaway, I rejoiced. I reveled as I passed other bunnies, not because I was besting them, but rather because I was doing my best. Reaching the first curve on lap 1, I scrambled through the first red obstacle, and as I emerged, I heard Pax whisper a naughty word as he burst through directly behind me. "Go!" I hollered to him without turning or slowing my pace. Racing hard, I was well into my second lap of 3. Halfway through lap 2, I scrambled to the top of the course's second blue over obstacle and glanced forward. Looking down from high atop blue 2, I caught sight of Woundwort entering the around black obstacle from high atop my perch. I inhaled, nodded, and scrambled down this obstacle for the second time, leaping to the track from a higher height than I'd done in round 1 as I raced forward with an even greater feeling of determination. I passed Woundwort just prior to reaching the final through red obstacle of lap 2, and as I emerged, I let out one quick bark of laughter as I spied Springer likewise hit the ground beyond the obstacle directly in front of me, just as I'd done with Pax. Starting lap 3, Springer and I raced forward, both determined to do our best. I raced hard, but as I raced, I was very careful not to interfere or endanger any of my fellow racers. My one-on-one race with Springer renewed my spirit and revived my mental strength. I took my feelings of joy and determination and harnessed them for an all-out effort. Racing at my absolute limit, I again began to see blackness around my vision. The blackness convinced me to let up just a bit, and instead of trying to pass Springer, I fell into place behind him. We raced around the track, Springer leading and me on his heels. Rounding the first curve, our race was down to the final 50 yards with just 4 more obstacles to go, over, under, around, then through. As Springer and I raced to the top of our final over obstacle of the 300-meter, we caught up to Bustle at the very top. "Go, Bustle! Go, Bustle!" I yelled to her as I slipped over the top in front of both her and Springer and sprinted to the under obstacle that was next in line. Springer emerged from the under obstacle in front of me while Bustle literally brushed my heels. Springer began to pull away from us, and I dug deep, giving it everything I had left. Despite my best effort and determination, the best I could do was to stay with him as we passed bunny after bunny, but even managing to lap a few more steeplechases before we crossed the finish line. Springer in the lead, me half a rabbit back, and Bustle a hair length behind. And though my vision had again turned decidedly tunnel-like, all of us feeling both exalted and exhausted, we ended our race.